Hello. In this tutorial, we will create an Android chat application in Kotlin. We will develop the backend in Node.js. Database will be MongoDB. First, you need to open Android Studio. I am using Bumblebee version. Then you need to create a new project in it. Select Empty Activity. Set the project name. Set its location. I am creating a new folder on desktop. And create. To develop Android apps, you have to go to your Android phone settings. And go to Developer Options. You can enable Developer Options by going to About Phone and tap your Android version 5-6 times. Then go to Developer Options. Enable USB debugging and wireless debugging. If your phone does not have wireless debugging, then you can test your app using your phone's data cable. For wireless debugging, you can either connect your phone via QR code or with a pairing code. You will see the QR code where the name of device Samsung A03 is written. Now run the app. You will see Hello World. Now we need to do the authentication first. Create a new activity. It will be an activity. Name it Register Activity. And create. Then in your main activity or splash screen, you need to redirect to register activity after 3 seconds of delay. We will use timer class and call schedule function from it. And set delay of 3 seconds. And start the register activity using intent. And finish current activity. And import the schedule class from Kotlin.concurrent package. And since we are inside a callback function, this will not work. So change it to application context. Then we will set the register layout. Create heading. Create input field for name. Create input field for phone number. And another field for password. and a submit button. Now initialize these fields and register activity. We also need to give button an ID. On click register button clicked, we will call an API. To call an API, we will be using a library called Volley. To install this library, go to Google and search for it. Copy this line and paste in build.gradle inside app folder. To call an HTTP request with Volley, we first need to create a queue of it. Then set the URL. We will create a utility class to store the base path of URL so it can be accessed same everywhere. Then use this in register. Then create a string of all the data that needs to be sent to the API. Some phone numbers have plus sign in them, so we will encode the phone number, otherwise it will take plus as a single space. Then we will create a string request object. First parameter will be method and it will be post. Second will be URL. And third will be response listener. It will have an argument response string. And fourth parameter will be response error listener. And it will have error as argument. And in its object's body, we will override the getBody method. It will return byte array. We will convert our request body to byte array. And set the charsa type to default, which is UTF-8. And finally we will add this string request to the Volley queue. We will display the error message in logcat if there is any. And also the response received from server. Filter it from your logcat. We already created a boilerplate for authentication. You need to go to this GitHub profile, Adnan Afzal 565. Go to Repositories. Open Authentication Boilerplate MEVN. And download zip. Extract the files. We will only need the API folder, so delete the web folder. Open CMD in API folder. And run the command npm update. After that, run npm install -g no-daemon. And then no-daemon server.js. To use APIs in Android app, we must provide IP address, localhost will not work. So open another terminal and run if config. You need to copy this IP address after inet. And paste in utility class, replace localhost. Now we will open this API folder in our code editor and make some changes in the registration API. The URL should be registration. Replace email with phone. And we will not be using email verification to delete this code. Change the response message. And remove the verification token and is verified as well. We will also set the name of our database. Now run the app. Splash screen, after 3 seconds it will take to register activity. Fill out the form. And hit register. If you see this cleartext HTTP traffic error, then it means that you have not added Internet permission in Android Manifest. So open Android Manifest. And give Internet permission. And also access network state. And in your application tag, add attribute uses clear text traffic to true. And set the phone number type to numbers only. Now you see the response message. Refresh your MongoDB compass. A new database is created, open it. It has users collection. So the data has been saved successfully, now we need to display an alert dialog when the registration is done. We will create a folder named Models where all API response models will be saved. We will create General Responsny model. It will have status and message variables. To bind the string to Kotlin class, we need to implement another library called JSON. You can Google it as well. Copy this and paste in app build.gradle. Then in response listener, create JSON object. Use from JSON. First parameter will be JSON string that needs to be mapped. And second will be the class name to map. After that, we need to show an alert dialog. We will create show alert function in utility class. It will accept context, title and message. Two callbacks, one for yes and one for no. Create an alert dialog builder instance. Set title and message. Set positive button. String will be yes. It will have dialog which will be the current dialog instance, and which that is the index of buttons on this alert dialog. On clicked, we will call the onYes runnable. And when user presses no, we will call on no runnable. And finally show the alert. And in register activity, we just need to call this function. Account has been created. Refresh MongoDB Compass and it will be displayed. Now first we will make our splash screen to go full screen. So before setting content layout. Request window feature. Window.feature no title. This will hide the title bar on top. And set window flag. Window manager.layout params.flag full screen. This will be for both width and height. Then go to Android Manifest. And in your activity tag, set theme style of no action bar. And we will display an image in splash screen. So go to your main activity. Change it to relative layout. Replace text with image. You can use your own logo here. Splash full screen for 3 seconds, then it goes to register activity. Now we need to do the login. First create a link to login activity from register layout. Then get this text view in register activity. And attach an on-click listener. Create a new empty activity for login. And start this activity when login text is clicked. And remove the current activity. Change it to relative layout. Copy the heading from register layout. And change it to login. Create an input field for phone. And an input field for password. And a submit button. And in this login layout, we will create a link to register activity. Create its instances in login activity. Set the title to login. And also in register activity set the title to register. On register text clicked, go to the register activity. And on login button clicked, create a new volley queue. Set API URL. In request body, we will pass phone number and password. Make sure to URL encode the phone number. Create a string request object. Method will be post. And set the URL. Add response listener. And an error listener. Override getBody method. And send the request body after converting it to byte array. And finally add that string request to queue. Log the response. Now search for this login API in server.js file. Replace the email with phone. It will also return access token string and user object. So we will create a separate model for its response. We will create a separate class for user because we will be using it on multiple places. Then convert this JSON response to login model class object. We will save the access token in shared preference and attach it on other API requests. We are receiving access token only when the status is success. So we will put a condition. If the status is error, then we will display an error in alert dialog. To save value in shared preference, we will create a separate class in utility. My shared preference. Shared preferences are stored in files. So we will create a variable to set the name of the file. Then we will create a function to set the access token. It requires a context, so we will pass it as an argument. Context.getSharedPreference. First parameter will be file name. And second will be mode. We will set it as private. Save it in a preference variable. Change it to preferences. Edit. Put string. It stores in key-value pair. First parameter will be key and second will be value. And apply. We will also pass the access token while calling this function. Then in login activity success response, we will create an instance of this class. And call that function. And log the error if any. And run the app. You can see the access token has been returned. And it must have been saved in shared preference as well. And you can also see it in database. Now if user is logged in, we should redirect him to home page instead of register page. So we will create a home activity. And start it as soon as user is logged in. And in splash screen, we will check if user is logged in. So in your shared preference class, create a method to get access token. Get shared preference from file. Mode will be private. And to fetch the value, we will use getString function. First parameter will be key. And second will be default value. And convert it to string. And make the function to return string. Then call this function. And get access token string. If it is empty, means the user is not logged in. Then we will redirect to register. Otherwise, we will redirect to home page. So it has redirected on home page. Now in home activity, we will create a left menu to show user details and logout link. Change your home activity layout to drawer layout. Give it a ID. Create a relative layout to match parent width and height. Right now we are only creating a text view. And we will create a navigation view. Give it a ID. And set its layout gravity to start so it will be displayed on left. And it will have a header layout where we will display user name and phone. Create this layout. And include it properly. And create a menu where we will display links. Create this in menu directory. Create a menu directory if you do not already have one. And inside it create a layout. And in header layout, we will create two text views. One for display username. And one for phone. And in your menu, we will create an item for logout. Let's create an instance of drawer layout in home activity. An action bar drawer toggle is used to toggle open and close the left navigation view. And navigation view. First parameter of action bar drawer toggle will be activity, that will be this. Second will be drawer layout. Third will be string value for open, we will create these strings in a moment. And fourth for close. Now create these strings in strings.xml. After that, we need to add a drawer listener to the drawer layout. And pass the action bar drawer toggle to it. Then we will call sync state from action bar drawer toggle. Then we will set the action bar to display home as up enabled, means to make the navigation icon clickable. Set it to true. And support action bar can be null, so we make it optional. Then we will implement on navigation item selected listener interface on our activity. And implement its methods. Create an instance of navigation view. And set navigation view item selected listener to this class. And return true from here. Whenever an item from navigation view is clicked, we will receive it in on navigation item selected function. And whenever a navigation view is open or closed, we will get it in on options item selected function. So we will override it. Before the return, we will put a condition that says, if the menu item clicked is the drawer, then it means that it is handled manually, so we return true. Then in on navigation item selected listener, we will check if the clicked item is the logout. Then we will call our logout function here. First let's check the left menu. So it is working fine. Now we need to create the logout function. Now inside this if condition, we will call a function doLogout. Then create this function. Create a volley request queue. Set logout API URL. Create string request object. Set method to post. And URL. And response listener. And an error listener. Now we need to tell the server which user to log out. We will be using access token that was saved in shared preference. We will be sending access token in headers. So override getHeaders function. Create a variable named headers and its type will hash map, because headers are in key value pairs. We will be using this hash map. We will send the authorization header. And its value will be bearer space access token. We can get the access token from shared preference. So first create an instance of our shared preference class. Then we will get access token here. And finally add this string request to queue. We are not sending request body in this request because it is not needed. Then in server.js, find logout API. No need to change anything here. It is returning general response. So we will convert it to general response model class. And display an alert. And when user presses OK button, we will check if the status is success. If yes, then we should remove the access token from shared preference as well. So we create a new function in our shared preference class. It will only need context. Get shared preference instance. Call edit. And call remove. It only requires the key that needs to be removed. And apply. Then we only need to call this function when status is success. And go to the login activity. And finish current activity. Let's try the app. It has redirected me to login screen. If I reopen the app, it will not take me to home page, but instead it takes me to register page because I am logged out. Next thing we need to fetch all contacts, save them in MongoDB, and display them in home page. So go to home activity. And call getData function inside on create. Create this function. Create volley request queue. Set URL. This API is already developed in the boilerplate we downloaded from GitHub. Create a string request object. Set method to post. Set URL. Set response listener. An error listener. Attach headers. And in headers, pass the authorization key with value of access token. And add string request to queue. Search this API in server.js. It is returning a user object, so we need to create a separate model for it. In user. Then convert this JSON string to this model class. If the status is success, then we will show the username and phone on left drawer layout. Otherwise we will display an error in alert dialog. Create a user model instance. And initialize it when response from GetUser API is successfully received. After that we need to show username and phone on left menu. Go to your home layout. They are in header layout of navigation view. So we first need to get the header layout from navigation view. Call getHeaderView. And by 0, we mean to fetch the first header. Save it in a variable. Then we will get the name text view using this header view. And set the value in it. Same goes for phone text view. From the API, we need to replace the email with phone. So go to your auth.js file, it will be inside the modules folder. And change this to phone. Now run the app. You will see username and phone on left menu. Now we need to get the contacts. In Android, we must first get the permission to access contacts. So we will call our function getContactsPermission. Create this function. First we will check if the user has already allowed contacts permission. If the permission is granted, then we will call another function, getContacts. Create this function. Otherwise, we will request contacts permission from user. And it should be an array, so we can convert that to array using array of function. And last parameter is request code. And we also need to set this permission in Android manifest. This will open a small pop-up window with two buttons, allow and don't allow. The response of that pop-up will be received in a call back function called onRequestPermissionResults. So we will override it in home activity. First we will check if the request code is 565. Then we will check if user has granted no permission. Then we will do nothing. If the user has granted permission, then we will call our getContacts function again. In this function, we will create a JSON array where we will save all our contacts from phone. We need to run a query from Content Resolver to fetch the contacts. First parameter will be URL. Second will be projection, means columns that needs to be fetched. Setting it to null will return all columns. Third will be query arguments, it will also be null. Fourth will be cancellation signal, also null. And last will be sort order. We will sort the contacts by their name in ascending order, so they will start from A, B, C till Z. It will return a cursor. We will save it in variable named phones. Now we will loop through all phones. It can be null, so we make it optional. First we will get the name of each contact. Call getString from phone's cursor. Get column index. And we will get column index of display name and it will return its value. We will save it in a separate variable. Same goes for getting the phone. Only the column name will be changed. Then we will create a JSON object. And put name and phone to it. And add this JSON object in our JSON array. Finally we will close the phone's cursor. And display all contacts in logcat. So all my contacts has been fetched. Now we need to create an API to save these contacts on server. Create a volley request queue. Set API URL. We need to create this API. And in request body, we will send the contacts array after URL encoding it. Then we will create a string request object. Set method to post. And URL. Response listener. And error listener. And attach headers with the request. We will send the access token in authorization header. And also add request body to it. And add this request to queue. Now we need to create this module in our API folder. Inside modules folder, create a file named contacts.js. And we will export this module. Create an init function, it will receive app instance as argument. Then we will create a router from express instance. So we need to include the express module in this file as well. And tell the app to use this router for all routes that starts with contacts. Now using this router, we will create our save API. It will have an async function, because we will be using a wait command in it. It will accept two parameters, request and result. Request will be data received from client. And result will be data that needs to be returned to the client. And it also requires auth module, so we include it. And use it as middleware in our API. First we will get the logged in user. Then we will get the contacts array. It will be in JSON, so we must parse it. Then we will run the query on database that will set the contacts array to the logged in user. And we will send the response back to client. Now we need to include this module in server.js. And initialize it after database is connected. It will also be returning general response, so we convert it to class object. And show response message in alert dialog. So you can see that the contacts has been saved. Now it has one problem. Every time I open the app, it sends a request to the server to update the contacts. We want it to save the contacts just once. So we will use shared preference for it. Create a function in shared preference. It will save only Boolean value indicating if the contacts are already saved or not. Then we will call this function when response from contacts save API is received. And we will check this Boolean value before checking contacts permission. Create another function that will return this shared preference value. Default value will be false. And it will return Boolean. Call this function only if the contacts are not already saved. Now it only call that request once. Now change your auth middleware to return user contacts as well. If the user contacts array is not found, then it will return an empty array. To display all the contacts, we need to create a tab layout. So go to your home layout and add tab layout in it. Set its background color. And tab text color to white. And we will create a view pager that will display the content of each tab. Create both of these instances in home activity. Add tab in tab layout. So a tab is created. Now we need to use adapters to change view pager as tab changes. So create a new folder named adapters where all our adapters will be saved. And create home tab adapter class. Extend it from fragment pager adapter. It will accept fragment manager instance as parameter. Implement its methods. In getCount, we will return the number of total tabs. We will receive it from constructor. We will also receive context and fragment manager from activity. And in getItem, we will set the fragments based on their position. At position 0, it will be contacts fragment. And the default fragment will also be contacts fragment. When we add more tabs, then we will add more fragments here. Create this fragment. Create a folder named fragments. And create contacts fragment in this. Include this in home tab adapter. Extend it from fragment. And in on create view, we will set the layout of contacts fragment. Create this layout. And when the view is created, we will display contacts in it. First, in our home activity, we need to attach this adapter with tab layout. And attach the view pager on change listener to tab layout, so tab will be changed if user change the view pager using swipe. And if the tab is changed, we will also update the view pager current item value. Remove the optional. Now in our contacts fragment, we will call a function to fetch all contacts from database. Create volley request queue. Set API URL. Create string request object. Attach headers. Add authorization header. And send access token in it. Create my shared preference instance in this fragment. We are calling getData on resume because when we have 3 or more tabs, and user come back to the first tab, it will again fetch the updated contacts. Context can be null in fragment. So another way of using optional value is by calling let from it. And inside this let block, we will get the value in check, as it. And finally we will add the request to the queue. Log the response. And create this fetch API in contacts module. We will get the user. And get contacts from it. Then create its model class. It will return an array of user models. Create a contacts array list of user type. And set its value inside response after converting the JSON string to class object. Otherwise, we will show an error in alert dialog. Wherever we are using context in fragment, we have to use it as optional. To show the list of contacts, we will be using recycler view. And we will create layout for each contact. We will make layout of each item in recycler view as card view. Card elevation is used for the shadow. And we will only show contacts name and phone number. Create recycler view instance in fragment. Set its layout as linear. And we also need to create an adapter for this. Create contacts adapter in adapters folder. Extend it from recycler view adapter. And its type will be view holder class inside contacts adapter. So we will create that class. Each view holder will receive an item view. And it should also extend from recycler view holder. Then we need to implement its methods. Contacts adapter will receive contacts array in its constructor. Return the size of this array. And add parenthesis to it because it will be used as an invocation by the Android OS. And on create view holder, we will tell its layout. Inside view holder, we will create the instances of text views that are used inside this layout. And on bind view holder, we will first get the single contact object. And set the name and phone number text views values. And tell the recycler view to use this adapter. And when the contacts are fetched, we need to update the contacts array inside adapter. So we will create this function inside contacts adapter. Clear the previous values. Add all new values. And re-render the adapter. So all the contacts has been displayed in a recycler view.
Now we need to open chat page when any contact is clicked. To handle onClick listener in recycler view, we have to use interfaces. So let's create a folder where all our interfaces will be placed. And inside it, create an interface. RV stands for recycler view. It will have one function. And it accepts only view that is clicked. Then we need to implement this interface on our contacts fragment. And implement its method. And we will pass this interface in contacts adapter constructor as second argument. Then we need to define that argument as parameter. And in onBind view holder, attach an onClick listener to holder's item view. Whenever it is clicked, we will call our interface method. And pass the holder item view in it. And this will be called inside contacts fragment. And in this function, we will first get the recycler view position using the view that was clicked. Then we will check for index out of bound exception. and get the user object using that index. And create an intent for chat activity. And pass the user phone number to this intent. And start the activity. Then we need to create this activity. And import it. And since we are inside the fragment, so we must use context instead of this. First we will create a layout for user to send messages. Then we will create instances of these views in chat activity. First we will make our chat activity to display a back button. And when this back button is clicked, we will redirect it to home activity. That's why we didn't finish the home activity when chat activity was started. And create instances of views. Check if intent has phone number in it. If yes, then save it in a separate variable. And URL encode the phone number so it will be easy to send it in API requests. And we will display the username as title of this activity. So we must send the username and the intent from chat's fragment. And check if intent has both phone number and username. And set the title to username. Run the app. Tap on any contact. You will see the username on title bar and chat layout. Chat layout will be moved to bottom in a moment. When the send button is clicked, we will first disable the send button, so it should not get clicked twice. Create a new volley request queue. Set API URL. Send message and phone number in request body. And create a string request object. Set method to post. URL. Response listener. Error listener. Pass access token in authorization header. From shared preference. And send the request body. And add this request to the queue. We need to create this chats module in our API. Create chats.js file inside modules folder. And export it. Create init method, it will accept app as parameter. Create a router instance from express module. Include express module. And tell the app to use this router for all routes that starts with chats. Then create an API for send message. Add auth middleware. Include it. Add async function. It will have request and result. Get the user. Get phone number. And message. Make sure phone and message fields are not empty. If they were empty, then return an error. And stop the request. Then we need to encrypt the message. To encrypt the message, we will be using a module named crypto.js. So stop your server. And run the command npm install crypto.js. And restart the server. Now include this module. And set the algorithm to IS-256. CBC, that stands for cipher block chaining. And the key. It must be of 32 characters. Then we will call crypto.ice.encrypt. And first parameter will be the text that needs to encrypt, we will pass our message here. And second will be the key we defined above. And to string will convert it to encrypted text. We will save it in a variable and display it in console. Test the app. And also log in your Android application. And we need to include this chats module and server.js file as well. And call init function from it. And pass the app instance in it as argument. So you can see that the message has been encrypted. We will save this encrypted string in MongoDB. First we will check if the user with that phone number exists in database. If not, then we will return an error. And stop the request from further execution. And create a message object that will be saved in MongoDB. It will have unique object ID. We can get this object ID from MongoDB module. And it will have encrypted message. Sender, that will be the logged in user. ID, name and phone number will be enough. And receiver, that will be the data of user the message is being sent to. And timestamp when the message was sent. Save it in messages collection. We also need to send this message object to client app, but the message was encrypted, so we will use the original message plain text and replace it in message object. And send the response back to client. Along with message object. And in Android app, we will create a model class for this response. We will create a separate class for message. It will have all these fields. Timestamp type will be double. And initialize it from 0. Then we will convert the JSON response to this class object. Check if the status is success. If not, then we will display an error in alert dialog. I tried sending a message to an unregistered user, and it returned this error. But ignore this for now. After the response is received from the server, we need to enable the send button again. So the response is received. Now check in MongoDB. A new collection is created. It has one document. All data has been saved correctly. Now we will fetch the chat. Create a function getData. And call it only if the intent has phone number and name. In this function, we will create a request queue. Set API URL. And in request body, we will only send phone number. And create a string request object. Set method as post. Tell the URL. Define response listener. And response error listener. Pass headers. Attach authorization header. And its value will be bearer space access token. And send the request body as well. And add the request to queue. Log the response. Now create this fetch API and chats module. Get the user. Get phone number. Make sure phone number is not empty. Check the receiver, same as we did in Send API. Then we will fetch all the messages where I am the sender and other person is a receiver. Or the other person is a sender and I am a receiver. We will sort the message in descending order. And convert them to array. Save it in a variable. Every message is encrypted, so we need to decrypt the message before sending the response. So we will create a separate array that will be sent as a response. Loop through all messages. Create message object for each message. And push in data array. And send the response back to client. So the response is received. But the message is encrypted. Now we need to decrypt it. Create a separate variable for message. And call crypto.ice. .decrypt. And pass encrypted message and key. And it will return bytes array, save it in a variable. And convert it to string. Set the encoding type to UTF-8. And set this variable in message object. Now you will see the message in plain text. Now we need to create a response model class for it. It will have an array of messages. Then convert the JSON string to this class object. Check if status is success. If not, then display an error. Create a messages array. And initialize it. And set the messages array to what we are receiving from API. Now we need to create a recycler view to display the messages. And create this layout. It will be a card view. And in this layout, we will only display sender name and message. Create recycler view instance in chat activity. Set its layout to linear. And create an adapter for chat. It will extend from recycler view adapter. Its type will be viewHolder inside chat's adapter. Create viewHolder class. It will extend from recycler view viewHolder. Its parameter will be item view. Implement its methods. Its constructor will accept messages array. We will return the size of that array and get item count function. On create view holder, we will tell the layout. And return view holder from it. Create these text views instances in view holder class. In onBind view holder, get single message. Set sender text. And message text. Then set this adapter to recycler view and chat activity. Once the data from Fetch API is received, we will update the adapter. Create this function in adapter. It will accept messages array. Clear the previous messages. And add all new messages array. And tell the adapter to re-render itself. Test the app. So the previous chat has been fetched successfully. Now we need to append the new sent message in this list as well. First, let's give a little margin to this layout. And in Send API, we will append the new message object to this adapter. Create this function in adapter. And add this message to current messages array. And tell the adapter that a new item is inserted at last position. It has been appended. But if I move back and come again, you will see that the new message is at top, but it should be on bottom. You can fix this by either setting the reversing the recycler view layout, or reversing the data array from API. We will reverse the data array. Just call data.reverse. Now it is displaying correctly. Now we need to add a functionality to send attachments as well. First we will create an icon which when clicked should ask for user to pick image. Create an icon. And move it to bottom using translation Y property. Now we will attach an on-click listener to this image. And when clicked, we will start an intent to pick file from user's internal or external storage. First parameter will be intent. And second will be request code. And when an image is selected, we should convert it to base64. So override a method. On activity result. Check if result code is OK. And the request code is 565. Then we will get the data from intent. It will be a URI. We will be using input stream and it throws an exception. So we must handle that exception using try catch block. Open input stream from content resolver. And pass the data URI. And read bytes from it. It can be null, so we will use it as an optional using let block. And save it in bytes array. Then we will use the base64 class to encode that bytes array to base64 string. And set the flags to URL safe. It will make the base64 string in such format, then it can easily transfer it over an HTTP request. It will return a base64 string, so we will save it in a variable. And create this variable. We will also be getting attachment name. And file extension. We will create a utility function to get these values. First we will get the file name. It will accept content resolver as an argument. Call query function. And it will also accept URI. The projection will be null. Selection will be null. Selection arguments will be null. And sort order will also be null. It will return a cursor. And get the column index of display name. Then we will move the cursor to first item. And get the string using index of display name column. It can also be null, so use it in let block as well. It will return the name of the file. We will close the cursor. And return the name. And make the function to return string. And get the string value of name. And in chat activity, call this function and save it in attachment name variable. Now we will create one more utility function to get the extension of the file. It will accept URI. Check if the URI scheme has content in it. This is helpful for getting the path of file. Then we will get the MIME type of file using URI. But it also requires content resolver. MIME type will be a string, so we will return it. If the scheme does not have content, then we have to get the extension from absolute URL of file. Create URI from file. And return this. Then call this function in chat activity. Use let block. We will make the order of parameters in both functions same. First parameter will be content resolver, and second will be URI. Save it in extension variable. And correct its spellings. And we will log all three values to see if we are receiving them correctly. So we are receiving all values correctly. Now we will send these values to the Send API. and when the response is received, we will empty these values. And in send API, we will get all these values. Set the default value to empty, in case user does not select any image. To save the files in Node.js, we need to install a module named file system. Run the command npm install fs. And restart the server. And include this module at the top. And before the message object, create a variable that stores the path of attachment on the server and the name of attachment file on the server. But we will also preserve the original name of the file sent from Android app. Check if the base64 string is not empty. Then we will set the file name to current timestamp, so it will always be unique. And append the extension. And set the path of file on the server. We need to create this uploads folder at the root of our API folder. Then we need to call the writeFile function from file system module. First parameter will be the path of the file where file will be stored. Second will be the base64 string. Third will be encoding type, that will be base64. And fourth will be the callback function. We will display an error if there is any. Then we will add the attachment to the message object. And extension. And file name on the server. And the original file name, it will be used when downloading the file. When user downloads the file, he will receive it in same name while it was during upload. We also need to return the absolute URL of the attachment after message is sent. We will create a global variable that holds the URL of the API server. It will be same as in our utility object in Android app. And append the file path on server. So it will become an absolute path. And in Fetch API, we also need to do the same. By default, Node.js Express framework prevents direct listing of files. but we can allow some folders whose files can be accessed from directly hitting their URL in the browser. We will allow Uploads folder. Test the app now. Try uploading a file from your Android phone. Add a caption. And send. You can see all fields are saved in MongoDB. And you can also check the file has been saved in Uploads folder in your Node.js server. Now we need to display the attachment as well with message. So first create these fields in your model class. Then in your single message layout, create an image view. It will only be displayed if the message has any attachment. Create its instance in View holder. Check if message has attachment. If not, then simply hide this image view. Otherwise, display the image view. And to display HTTP image in Android, we need to use async task. So we will create a separate class in utils folder. It will be an async task. It will have string, that will be the absolute path of the image, and void, and bitmap, that is used to display an image view. Implement the doInBackground function. Get the URL from 0 index. Create an empty bitmap object. While using HTTP requests, it throws an exception, so we will use try-catch block to handle that exception. Use URL class. And send the URL as argument. And call OpenStream function. Save it in a variable. Then we will decode that stream using bitmap factory. It will return a bitmap, so we will save it in our image variable. And return it. Also override, on post-execute function. This will be called when the task is finished. And we will get the image view from the constructor. And in post-execute, we will set the value in that image view. The value will be the bitmap that was returned from doInBackground function. And in chat adapter, we simply need to create instance of this class. Pass the holder image view from the constructor. And call execute. And pass the URL of image. Whatever you pass in execute function, will be received in do in background function of async task. Test the app. So the image is displayed. We only need to make it a little bit bigger. Now we need to allow the user to download it. So create an icon for download. Create its instance in view holder. If there is no attachment, then this download button will be hidden as well. Otherwise, we will display it. For attachments, we will create another interface. It will have two functions. One will be called when the download button is pressed. And second will be called when the image is fully downloaded in internal storage. We will create the second function in a moment. Extend chat activity with this interface. And implement its method. Get child position from recycler view. Get all the messages from adapter. Create this function in adapter. It will return all current messages array. Check for index out of bound exception. Attach on-click listener on download button inside chat's adapter. And pass this newly created interface in chat's adapter constructor. And call this interface's method. And pass the holder item view in it. To download the file, we will again use another async task. So create a file. It will accept image path URL and file name that will be saved in internal storage. It does not accept any value from execute function. All required values will be sent from the constructor. Override do in background function. Get documents directory from Android phone storage. Create a file object with this path. If the documents directory does not exist, then it will create one. Set the path where file will be saved. Create a new empty file. Create a byte array of 1 MB, so it will save file in multiple parts. Create a URL object from image file path. And open the connection. And its type will be HTTP URL connection. Set the request method to GET. And we are not sending any request body, so set the do output to false. And connect. After that, we will get its input stream. Create a file output stream object using the file path we created above. Then loop through all buffers of 1 MB. Also keyword is used to perform some extra work on the object. So we will get each buffer length. And make sure it is greater than 0. Then we will write the buffer on the file output stream. First parameter will be total length of each buffer. Second will be offset, we will always start from 0. And last will be length of buffer. And when the loop ends, we will again write one more time to write the last remaining buffer. Close the input stream. And the file output. Create a variable that will save the path of file saved in internal storage. We will show it in a toast. Set its value. Return null. And make it nullable. Then simply call this class. Pass the URL of the image. And original file name. And we will wrap this entire block in try catch. And call execute from that class. To save files in internal storage, we must get permissions from user. So add read and write external storage permissions in Android manifest. And for real-time permissions, we need to use a library called Dexter. Google it. Go to its GitHub repo. Copy this and paste in your app build.gradle file. Sync it. And in chat activity, when the download button is clicked, get the permissions. Move this code inside the onPermission-granted function. Now test the app. It will first ask for permission. Then download the file. In some Androids, you will not be able to download the same image twice. That is because of the name of the file. So in your Chat's Fetch API, make the download file name unique by making it current timestamp. Now it will download fine. One more thing we can do, is to show the name of file once it is downloaded. So add attachment interface's third parameter of download file from HTTP class. And pass this from chat activity. And in async task, override on post execute. And simply call the function from attachment interface. Create another function in this interface. It will accept string path of file. Call it. And pass the file name in it. Now in chat activity, we need to implement this new function as well. And in this function, we will simply display the saved file path in a toast. So you can see where it is saved in your Android phone. Now we need to do two more things. We need to display the recent chats on top. And we need to highlight the unread messages. To display the recent chats on top, we need to go to our Chat Send API. And after the message has been inserted in Messages collection, we need to add an updated at field in logged in users document. We will search in users collection. Where ID is logged in users ID. And the contact's phone number is the receiver's phone number. And we will update that contact's nested array, and add a new field, updated at. The $sign will update only that contact whose phone number is matched in the above condition. This will be the current timestamp. So it will set the time of the message I sent to that contact. And in receiver's document, we need to tell him that he has one unread message from me. So we will search in user's collection, where ID is receiver's ID, and contact's phone number is logged in user's number. Then we will update the logged in user's contact nested array in receiver's document, and add a field, unread message, and set its value to 1. This will be enough to highlight the contact. And we will also add the updated at field in receiver's document as well. Now we will test the app. Check in your MongoDB. So it has added updated at field in receiver's nested array in my document. And it has added has unread message and updated at fields in my nested array inside receiver's document. So we have the time of recent message on each contact. Now we need to update our contacts fetch API. We will use a separate variable for returning user contacts. Then we will call sort function on this array. It will accept an inline compare function as an argument. This function will further have two arguments. A will be the first contact to compare, and B will be the second contact to compare. We will compare updated at field of each contact. The contact will have an updated at field only when we send him a message. So it might not exist for some contacts. So we will put a condition that checks if the contact has an updated at field. If not, then we will return the 0 value. Otherwise, it will return the date object using the updated at field. And same goes for second contact. Then we will check if the first contact's updated at field is less than the second one. Then we will return 1, means sort first contact after second. And if the first contact's updated at field is greater than the second one, then we will return -1, means sort first contact before second. If both are equal, which is very rare, we will return 0, means to keep the original order of sorting. Now test the app. You can see the developer contact is at top, because we send the recent message to him. Now on developer's contact side, we need to highlight the user. First we will add these two fields in user's model. Then in contacts adapter, we will simply check if I have some unread messages from this contact. If yes, then we will give it a background color to highlight. Now we will log in as developer. You can see that it has been highlighted. Now when user opens his chat and comes back, He is still highlighted, because the has on read message field is still 1. We need to change that to 0 once user has read its messages. So in Chat's Fetch API, before sending the response, I will search in user's collection. Where ID is logged in user's ID. And contact's phone number is the phone number of contact whose chat I have opened. And set the has on read message to 0 on that contact only. Now test the app again. So it is working fine now. And if you check in your MongoDB, the has on read message field is set to 0. One more thing we can do is to add a search field in contacts list. So go to your contacts fragment layout and create an edit text. So a search view is displayed. Now we need to create its instance in contacts fragment. And add text changed listener. It will accept an object of TextWatcher class as an argument. Implement its methods. On text changed listener is called when user presses any key, so we will use this. We will create a temp array that will hold all the contacts that match the search criteria. Then we will loop through all contacts. We will search the contacts using their name. Contains will search contacts that matches any character from search field. So if contact's name is Adnan Afzal, and you search for just Adnan, then it will also be returned. Passing second parameter as true will make the search case insensitive. If the contact name is found, then we will add it in temp array. And finally we will update this temp array in the adapter. Sometimes Android Studio throws an error that these totos are not implemented. So we remove those lines. Now test the app. Search is working fine, but when it is clicked, it returned the wrong contact. This can be fixed by using the contacts array from adapter. So first, we will create a function in contacts adapter that will return the current array in adapter. Then we will use this array in contacts fragment. Now it is working fine. So these are all the features we added in Chat app in Android. If you have more ideas, kindly do let me know. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me if you face any problem in this.